For more than 5 million Americans, it's time to pay the piper. Find out what changes are coming to student loans just ahead. Plus, CCISD takes action against doom scrolling. A new lawsuit from the school district could target social media. And some inland neighborhoods say hello to hail to start the day. Stick around as senior meteorologist Bill Alexander has the details. KRIS 6 News starts now. And we thank you for joining us. I'm Andy Lascano. The entire world grieves Pope Francis's passing, leading up to his funeral scheduled for this coming Saturday. And here in the Coastal Bend, parishioners of the Corpus Christi Cathedral are mourning as well. We go to senior neighborhood news reporter Suzanne Stevens, who is there now ahead of a special ceremony for the Pope. Suzanne, what's it like out there? What are the crowds like out there?
Well, Andy, it's kind of slow right now. People are slowly starting to file in. Pass starts at about 6:30, so we're still waiting on some people. But pretty soon the pews will be filled with people reflecting, remembering, and grieving. On Monday, the Pope passed away, and since then, a wave of mourning has swept across continents. Tonight's memorial is a local expression of that grief, a chance for Catholics to gather in prayer and thanksgiving for a leader who guided the Church through some of its most challenging and transformative times.
One of the things that touches my heart all the time is the fact that, you know, he washed the feet of prisoners, and, you know, I mean, that speaks volumes.
You can see what he's done with all of the youth, and you look at every parish and just around the world, how the youth are coming back into our faith. I don't think there could be anything greater, because he was taking care of our future.
And Mass starts at 6:30 and goes to approximately 7:15. We are going to stay here throughout and bring you much more at 10 o'clock, including how this moment is resonating with longtime Catholics and the newer generation. Live from the Cathedral downtown, I'm Suzanne Stevens. Back to you, Andy.
Suzanne, thanks for that report. Inside the Vatican, Pope Francis's body rests at St. Peter's Basilica while visitors pay their respects. It will remain there for 3 days until his funeral, Saturday. The Pope's body was transferred to the Basilica during a procession earlier Wednesday. That was followed by a service. Cardinals viewed the coffin in pairs, followed by the first members of the public who paid their respects. Well, how about that for a rare sound these days across the Coastal Bend? This morning, some inland neighborhoods, including Aransas Pass, found flooding on their streets. Started raining about 7:30 and was followed by hail.
Probably 10-15 minutes later, we got a pour down of hail, like a dime-sized gumball, and probably about another 10 minutes of that affected our area. Started to flood pretty quickly.
We had to run for cover, and it just started hailing really bad.
Now, we weren't able to get actual hail video, that short burst of hail that we're reporting, but luckily, our Coastal Bend weather watcher stepped up. Here's a picture from Betty Ann Lopez in Aransas Pass. Check out the size of those hail rocks. They're about the size of maybe a small pebble. And if you want to see more pictures or videos like that, or add your own video or pictures, we invite you to join our Coastal Bend Weather Watchers page. Scan the QR code you see on your screen or look for it on Facebook. Flooding, hail, and a whole lot more. What a week it's been already for weather in the Coastal Bend. To make sense of all of this, we welcome in senior meteorologist Bill Alexander. We've been seeing the rain. We got it. Has it helped our lake levels?
Not yet. And we'll know tomorrow when we actually get the measurements, because I looked at the measurements today. There's no change, but then again, that's when those data are compiled at like 6 or 7 a.m. So let's wait for the terrain to respond. In the meantime, we're looking at a few lingering showers out there, but not very much. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other items here. First off, 12-hour storm reports, and as we just showed you, the hail reports from San Patricio into Aransas County between the size of nickels and the size of quarters. Some pretty decent hailstones out there early today. That also left a lot of rain. Look at this band of precipitation. Yes, these are fairly small numbers, but they're big numbers in our northernmost areas here. 3 to 6 inches of rain, including right there on the island. So it really came down. In the next several days, we're looking at lots of warmth and humidity through the coming week. The fire danger essentially nil through the next week, with little to no significant rain until the middle of next week. So we'll be looking at this kind of atmosphere, and I'll give you their full forecast in just a bit.
All right, Bill, we'll look forward to that. We now know the name of the person who died in that house fire on the city's south side last week. The medical examiner's office has identified her as 88-year-old Annie Hatfield. Last Wednesday, Corpus Christi Fire Department was called to Hebert Lane, that's near Weber and Saratoga. Crews fought the blaze and later found Hatfield in the garage of the house. She was taken to a hospital but was pronounced dead. Investigators say the fire started in the kitchen and was accidental. Well, nearly 3 years ago to the day, a gunman walked into a school in Uvalde and gunned down 21 people, 19 students, 2 teachers. It was the deadliest public school shooting in Texas history. Now, the families of those victims in the shooting have reached a settlement with the city. City council members in the Texas town voted unanimously Tuesday to approve the settlement. The details of the agreement haven't been released. Several lawsuits were filed in the aftermath of the mass shooting, seeking accountability for law enforcement's response at the shooting. Uvalde Mayor Hector Luvano said the city will work with families to create a permanent memorial. Well, there's a big change coming to all student loans. You want to listen to this now. After a 5-year pause, the Trump administration is restarting collections on defaulted student loan debt. A defaulted loan is one that a borrower hasn't made payments on for more than 270 days, 9 months. The Education Department says that almost 25% of all federal student loans are in default.
It's one of the issues that's happened recently that has affected the economy. People who were spending money more freely now have to pay their student debt. That's money that was circulating in the economy that's now going back to the banks.
The 5 million Americans with defaulted student loan payments will have their loans set for collections on May 5th. All right, CCISD is taking legal action against some of the world's biggest social media platforms. The district's now part of a lawsuit claiming these apps are contributing to, quote, a youth mental health crisis. The suit targets some key apps like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, but they're not alone in this fight. We're told at least 800 other school districts across the country are joining this lawsuit. A local Corpus Christi mom says she's seen the effects social media can have on kids.
I don't demonize technology, like I said, but I don't think we ought to let it hijack our lives at all and the lives of our kids. And it runs a very high risk of doing that.
KRIS 6 News reached out to CCISD regarding the lawsuit. They declined to comment on pending litigation.
I'm Tony Jaramillo, your neighborhood news reporter on the South Side. Everything behind me used to look like this. I'll tell you about the growth London ISD continues to see.
We're a little over 1,800 kids, and we basically are going to average 8% growth every year for the next 7 years. So it puts us about 10 years pretty much doubling in size.
As superintendent of the London Independent School District, Dr. Chapman gets a bird's eye view of growth in his district. He calls it rapid and believes it's transforming the one-time small district into one of the Coastal Bend's fastest growing. The district's continued growth, he says, has resulted in expansions and additions.
This last school year, we completed a cafeteria project, a high school expansion, and an elementary expansion. And we have our London primary school that'll open up 16 classrooms starting next July for our littlest pirates.
Despite new facilities, capacity concerns remain top of mind.
The problem is about 3 years, our intermediate, middle, and high school all will be at or near capacity, and so we have to start making plans for that now.
Parents like Justin McComb, a father of 4 London ISD students, have witnessed the district's evolution firsthand.
It's growing as quick as we can move dirt, but it's exciting and it's a good place to be.
He says the growth reflects London's increasing popularity in the region.
Man, I think London's the future of the whole community. It's a desired school district. We're growing as quick as we can. You can tell with the housing market around the area.
The district also says they are no longer using septic systems for their plumbing. On the South Side, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Tony Jaramillo, KRIS 6 News.
Tony Jaramillo, thanks for that report. You are not the only one getting ready for Buck Days this weekend. CCPD also preparing for the city's biggest festival of the year. About 50 extra officers will be along the parade route from Buck Stadium to Waters Edge Park for security and traffic control. They're going to have drones flying over Leopard Street to ensure everybody's safety.
Leopard won't be shut off till 6. Once 6 o'clock rolls around, then the entire route will be starting to shut down. At that point, it's basically safe for you to let your kids kind of play out in the street, but also be mindful that there are going to be police units and golf carts and other units that are going to be up and down the parade route.
So, a tradition around here, neighbors have already started marking their spots for the parade. If you have a spot, you can begin setting up your viewing area Friday at 5 p.m. And a reminder, if you want to enjoy the parade from the comfort of your own home, we have you covered. Our Brian and Michelle Hoffman will host the Stadium Show and Night Parade. Meteorologist Stephanie Lauber will join them. It all starts Saturday night at 7 on KRIS 6 and streaming on KRISTV.com.
Returning to the workforce after a cancer diagnosis. I'm Erin Holly, your neighborhood news reporter, telling you about a scholarship helping women and talking to someone who's benefited from it.
You're watching KRIS 6, part of the Scripps News Group.
So $50,000. That's the donation Halo Flight received today to continue serving the Coastal Bend. Flint Hills Resources donated the check in partnership with Halo Flight. The donation will also assist with the Flights of Angels golf tournament.
These funds are actually going to be direct impact. I mean, you see the aircraft behind us. We've updated our technology. We've updated equipment, just so that we can give an overall best outcome for our patients.
Garcia also says they couldn't do anything without the support of the community and their partners. All right, listen up now. There's a road closure that you probably need to know about beginning tonight at 7, which is about 45 minutes from now, and going until 6 in the morning tomorrow, Thursday. The Northwest Loop ramp from northbound I-37 to southbound State Highway 286 is going to be closed. So if you're heading southbound on 181 to 286, you'll be detoured to take the Port Avenue, Nueces Bay Boulevard exit, make a U-turn at Nueces Bay Boulevard, and continue southbound on I-37 to the ramp at 286. Be prepared to slow down for construction in some areas.
I'm Erin Holly, your neighborhood news reporter on the West Side with the story of Jessica Bowers. She's this year's recipient of the Blue Rose Scholarship, designed to help women re-entering the workforce after being affected by cancer. I talked to her and the person who started the scholarship decades ago about its impact.
It all began when I had a friend that was part of the Corporate Chamber die of breast cancer.
Gay Calloway tells me that was back in 1996. 1 year later, she founded the Mystery of the Blue Rose Scholarship. She's been awarding the scholarship ever since.
It's not for your child out of high school. It is for a female 35 or older that's life has somehow been touched by cancer.
Jessica Bowers is this year's recipient.
I am a breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in October of 2020.
Jessica is now cancer-free. She decided to go back to school at Texas A&M Kingsville to get a PhD in educational leadership. The Mystery of the Blue Rose Scholarship gives Jessica $1,000. Last year, she also got the award.
It was very much a dark time, but I was very fortunate to have support throughout this whole ordeal.
A blue rose typically signifies mystery and pursuing the impossible.
Well, actually, I was reading a book, and it had this beautiful blue rose on the front, and it just kind of inspired me.
30 years later, Gay and her mission of the Mystery of the Blue Rose still inspires.
Is this a route that I should take? Should I continue my education? And that sort of inspired me to realize, yes, this is something that I needed to do.
You can find out more about the Mystery of the Blue Rose Scholarship by clicking on to KRISTV.com. Reporting from the West Side, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Erin Holly, KRIS 6 News.
Well, it's still a little bit murky out there, but the rain has essentially come to an end. It's been kind of a stormy morning, but it's looking pretty nice tonight. When do we see rain again, and how much will we see? We'll talk about that after the break.
Buck Days continues the tradition of changing lives through education with the Port of Corpus Christi Leadership Program, sponsored on KRIS 6 by Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi.
Hey folks, meteorologist Bill Alexander, and you're looking from Matthew's CCAC weather camera on the island at Snoopy's across Laguna Madre. You see some scattered low clouds out there, a thin veil of high clouds. Behind the banner there's the sun working towards the sunset down towards Flower Bluff, but no rainfall. And what you do see is a lot of high clouds over southwest and south central Texas, kind of edging on into our area. Showers we saw earlier this afternoon have now moved well into the hill country. Other thunderstorms now erupting across the Sierra Madre, but that's where they're going to stay because the upper level disturbance that gave us severe storms this morning has now moved well off to our east and moving away. In its wake, yeah, we made it to 84 degrees today after a morning low of 75, and no rain officially at the airport, so we're 1.23 inches below normal for the year. Across the state right now, temperatures hovering in the 70s and 80s. Little rain cooled there with that storm complex at 72 degrees in Shreveport. Houston also a little bit cooler at 75. And additional storms, as you saw on the satellite image, dancing across the Davis Mountains there around Marfa. But across here, temperatures are uniformly in the 80s except for that 79. 78 and 79 along the immediate Gulf side beaches there. Now let's take a look at up close on your exclusive neighborhood weather network, and this is where you get to see some interesting information here. Your neighbors are showing 78 to 81 degrees there at Rockport. Your current temperatures go over to the south side, yeah, upper 70s to lower 80s. Out towards Beeville, though, lower 80s prevail, but there is a change here. Watch what happens with peak winds. Those early morning thunderstorms, gust of 44 miles an hour on the west side of Beeville and 73 at Hilltop Road. That was that severe storm that moved across our northern counties, and it produced significant rain, the better part of an inch of rain, in that fast-moving system. You take that down, the same system, to Rockport, and the better part of an inch, but further to the north, 3 to 5 inches of rain fell. So we were right on the southern edge of that severe storm band, and looking on the west side, 1/100th of an inch of rain is all they saw. But that steady southeasterly wind is keeping the moisture pumped into the area, 15, 18 miles an hour. And as a result, the dew points range from the upper 60s to lower 70s, and that's going to hold our minimum temperatures down overnight to the lower to middle 70s across the board. Another warm, humid morning and another warm afternoon, minus the rain potential. Lower, middle, upper 80s, even some lower 90s out in the folks in George West. Yeah, it's going to get kind of warm out there. But if you're heading to the coastal waters or the Gulf side beaches, you can expect upper 70s, both the air and the water temperature. It's going to be windy with a southeast wind 15 to 25 knots, and that's going to give you slightly choppy to occasionally choppy bays, 4 to 6 foot seas. And at least the rip current risk is now low, but small craft should be exercising caution. Now, what's forming all those storms? Well, part of it is this dry line out here. That's the demarcation between the moist Gulf air and the dry continental air, and that's acting like a cold front. It's typical for this time of the year as it bulges out in the afternoon. Showers and thunderstorms erupt along it as long as they have good upper level support. Now we don't have that. We had that yesterday afternoon and evening, and that system's moved well off to the east. Well, what are we looking at for rain? Well, we're going to have to wait until the middle of next week for any rainfall of any consequence, and that's a ways away. So your forecast looks like this, largely devoid of rainfall, temperatures hovering in the middle 80s, quite windy for the next 7 days, with an outside shot at showers next Wednesday.
Buck Days continues the tradition of changing lives through education with the Port of Corpus Christi Leadership Program, sponsored on KRIS 6 by Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi.
All right, before we fly away, there's one more story that had neighbors flocking to the botanical gardens. The Birdiest Festival is back and feathered than ever. Held this week, starting today and Sunday. The bird is the word for this festival, as hawks, owls, and other soaring species are on display at the gardens. There's also tours available to see birds across the coastal bend.
You get in your van here at the Botanical Gardens, and you have a bird guide that goes with you and takes you to the places where the birds are.
And on Super Saturday, there will be a 10:30, a 1:30, and a 4 o'clock show, and you can see all sorts of live raptors and learn about what goes on with them.
The Super Saturday event will include food and local vendors along with the bird bonanza. Now, before we came back on the air, Mr. Alexander was entertaining us with some music, including
60 years ago. Bird, bird, bird. The bird is a word. Bird.
We get this all the word. Now that was an added bonus. We get this every day, folks. We get this every day
I'll
from
be
this
here all
man
week,
right
folks.
here.
Sure to tip your weight person. All right, we're looking at another mild and humid evening out there with a low in the middle 70s. Little breeze going on, that onshore flow keeping things on the humid side. Not only tonight, but for the next week, we're looking at very little in the way of meaningful rainfall, at least until next Wednesday, when yet another disturbance gives us an opportunity for rain.
All right, thanks for joining us. We invite you to come back and join us tonight at 10 for more news from your neighborhood. This guy does this every day, entertains us around here.
The only skill I've got.